Welcome to Magic Arcanum. I'm Ryan Gomez. Behind the scenes is Nicole Burdick, and we're so glad you're here because it's story time. And it's a very special story time because it's another episode of Story Beats, where I take one of the story decks from Wizards of the Coast and put it through its paces on Magic Arena. In case you missed it, Wizards has started doing this thing where they publish a list of house-made decks for every major set release. We've got 15 such decks for Wilds of Eldraine, covering all types of strategies, and most of them are pretty budget-friendly, but that does leave the question, are they any good? So today we've got Zzzzz, featuring the Fairy Court with kindly Lord Talion and their daughter, Princess Obyra, who loves to duel people while she's sleepwalking. Here is the official description. When the Princess Obyra is fast asleep, what else is there but to make hers a restful one? A difficult thing to do, what with the princess being the plane's best duelist, and that she duels in her sleep. Enjoy the antics of the Fae as Talion, the kindly lord, tries to rule a steadily decreasing number of waking fairies, while Obyra, dreaming duelist, makes her lord's task even harder. Use your fairy army to mix up your opponent and grow stronger with each fairy played. So that's the game plan, and here's the deck list. The notable cards in here are Talion, the kindly lord, and Obyra, dreaming duelist, which do a great job setting the tone for this archetype deck. The theme is a little weird, but story-wise, Kellen does interact with Talion several times, and their court always has this mysterious, dreamlike quality to it, so I guess this works. We never meet Obyra in the story, but through flavor text, we learn that she is a fierce fighter who is currently sleepwalking her way through the wilds, challenging people to duels, which her card doesn't actually do, but otherwise the plan here is pretty solid. We're just gonna spam out as many cheap fairies as we can and peck our opponent to death. It's an aggressive strategy with a little bit of removal thanks to fairy fencing, some counter spells with spell stutter, and then a couple of fairies that have some adventures on them to lend a helping wing. I gotta say, I like the looks of this one. It seems built to really show off what a well-drafted fairies deck might look like. And the game plan here is strong enough that we might even be able to win some games in Standard, provided we don't lose to our own evolving wilds first. So what do we think? Will these sleepwalking fairies cause nightmares for our opponents? Let's find out in today's Story Beats. Okay, here we go. First game with Zzz. I'm just going to call it Zzz. It's supposed to be the sound you make when you're snoring or sleeping or whatever, but we're just going to call it Zzz. We've got an Evolving Wilds and a Swamp, which gets us into both of our colors. We don't really have a great turn one play because we don't have an island. I would love to put down this Sleep Cursed Fairy, but otherwise, I think we're okay. So we'll keep it. The game plan here is, like I said in the intro, oh, another Evolving Wilds, great. So we're gonna crack one of these for an island, I guess, to start. And then the game plan is just to develop our Air Force and hit as hard as we can. I think next turn is gonna be Swamp Barrow Naughty. Opponent with the green-black food deck, it looks like. That's pretty sweet. We could also just play the Sleep Cursed Fairy and kill Tough Cookie before it starts animating food tokens. I guess that's better. The sooner we can get Sleep Cursed Fairy down. So the cool thing about this instant is that it gives a creature -X/-X until end of turn, plus an additional -3, +-3/-3, yeah, that works. Plus -3/-3 more if we control at least a fairy. So for a single black, as long as we control somebody else, it's a -3/-3 instant, which is quite good. We're gonna get our second Evolving Wilds here. I'm not really sure which color this deck wants more of. I think there's some double black spells in here, so maybe we go get extra black. And so they've got a Sweet Tooth Witch. I think that's all right. We don't need to kill it yet with Fairy Fencing, but I will get my Barrow Naughty online. And so this is a cool one. A 1 excuse me, a 1/3 for 2 mana that has flying, and lifelink as long as you control another fairy. So the fairies have a lot of great synergies with each other. And this one even has like a late game mana sink, I will call it. This is like a great draft card because, you know, it flies, it can block well, you can pump it. We're not going to use it to chump block this witch, however, and of course we don't get a second island, we get... All right, so they have a 5/5 troll with trample, and they can pay 1 and sacrifice an aura attached to it to fight something. They are currently tapped out. So I think this is when we try to get rid of this guy. So we'll make X equal to 2. That makes it a total of -5. We'll just kill it while we can, gain a little bit of life back. And so, let's see, next turn we're looking at probably this Storyteller Pixie. Unless we pick up a 5th land, then we might just jump right up to the Obyra's Attendants. Opponent trying to figure out what they want to do here with their foods. They're going to pile on to get rid of our Barrow Naughty. That's interesting. So that's an instant that destroys a creature or planeswalker. We don't have any planeswalkers. And then they get to Surveil 2. But they fired that off during their own main phase rather than save it. I guess they're afraid of our own counter magic. And we continue to find black lands. Okay. So a 3/2 matching up against our 3/4. I think I like that. I mean, we could make an argument that you should save this and use the adventure half of it, or play the Pixie first, because then when we play the adventure, we get to draw a card, but I suspect this guy's not going to be long for this world anyway, so... Good news is, next turn, our Sleep Cursed Fairy is going to untap, finally. So I really like the design of this card. It's a cheap 3/3 flying with Ward 2, but it comes in with 3 stun counters on it, and then you can pay 2 to untap it, but if it has stun counters on it, instead you just remove the stun counter, because the next time it would untap, it doesn't. You just remove a counter. Beyond that, it kind of has pseudo-vigilance. Oh my god, where's our islands? So we've got 6 mana now. We could drop our Storyteller Pixie, or we could attack and use our Rowdy Research to draw more cards. I think I like doing that. So this is an instant that gets cheaper to cast for each creature that attacked this turn. Drawing 3 cards seems worth. Alright, still more swamps. But hey, like I said, something with double black and the mana cost, so I guess this is going to help. Unfortunately, we don't have any bargain fodder for our High Fae Negotiator. It's a 5 mana 3/5 with flying, and when it enters the battlefield, if it's bargained, each opponent loses 3 and you gain 3. That's quite good. I mean, in draft, I don't know how good it is in standard when you're up against Shieldreds and Atraxas, but we'll try and make it work for us. Alright, we're taking 4 here. Our opponent has Welcome to Sweet Tooth. They're making tokens, they're making food, they're going to put counters on a creature where that's the number of foods they have. So we could just play this as a 3/5 and keep up Spell Stutter. Or we could make our opponent discard a card by playing this and keep up Spell Stutter. I think I like that a little better. So what else our opponent's up to here? Thinking long and hard about what they want to discard. Alright, so they end up giving up Black Sun's Twilight. Interesting. You know, I think we're not going to attack here. We might need this Sleep Cursed Fairy on defense, depending on where they put these counters from their Welcome to Sweet Tooth saga. And anything else they try to play is going to cost them a lot. Alright, so they have a 6/5 witch. Which I think we're just going to probably chump block with our Spell Scorn Coven. Do I want them to have a tough cookie? That's a tough one, because this can keep animating their foods into real threats, but we're about to play a 3/5, so I guess that's alright. And they don't have enough mana to animate one of these right now anyway, so... Alright. They attack with both. Not sure why they're throwing the human away here, but... we'll just eat that. Okay. We pick up Obyra. Whenever another fairy enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life. So we have enough to play her. And then the High Fae Negotiator, again, won't be able to bargain it. And I really wish we had another island so we could keep up Spell Stutter or something like that. But we're just going to get a 3/5 and hope that that's good enough to block animated food tokens or whatever. So opponent goes down to 12. Although, unfortunately, they do still have a lot of food banked up, which they could eat, which inflates their life total. So this is actually a lot further away from victory than I would like at this point. And they are going to Puny Snack. So that's the adventure half of Gingerbread Hunter, which gets rid of our Dreaming Duelist. That's unfortunate. But I mean, we do get to just eat tough cookie. I think I'm okay taking 6 here. Like, that hurts, but I don't want to give up my dudes if I don't have to. Alright, we found another life-linking Barrow Naughty, so that sounds good. And I think we just keep Spell Stutter, because I bet they're going to try to resolve that giant. And I'm going to say no attacks, because I'm planning to double block Sweet Tooth Witch, if they come at me with that. Opponent still with 2 cards in hand, and a giant on adventure. And we're going to go with a Candy Grapple to try and kill our Negotiator. So do we use our Spell Stutter here to protect it? I guess we have to, otherwise we don't have enough to block the witch. So this is going to make it cost, what, 5 extra? Alright. So we live, and the next turn I guess we just pump our Naughty and use the lifelink to kind of start gaining back life and close the gap here. Opponent goes with Feral Encounter. That's troublesome. Okay. So this is going to let them look at the top 5 of their library. They can exile a creature card from among those, put the rest on the bottom, and then they can play whatever they find. But the more important part is that they get to now fight, which is going to kill. It's not even a fight. It's a one-sided fight. It's a bite. Yeah. All right, so this would be lethal. So 3. So I guess we're blocking together and pumping up the Naughty. We have just enough to do it. Unfortunately, her 6 power kills both of ours. So boards are empty. Okay. We pick up a Mocking Sprite, so we can play one of these. So I guess it's going to be Storyteller Pixie. They are probably playing this giant, though, which is big boy. Yeah. All right, we drew Talion's Messenger, which I I mean, we're going to try to use. We get to attack, and then, oh man, do we discard an island, or do we discard the sprite that we can't play right now? Anyway, I guess we give up the island. Alright, opponent to 8. We're at 7. We can take 1 hit from this giant. Alright, they adventure a wolf, make more food, play wolf. Doesn't have haste. We're not in trouble yet. Yeah, we're not blocking that. We're just gonna hope they don't have any way to buff it. Alright, we're at 2. They're at 8. Into the Fey Court needs double blue. How have we only drawn 2 islands this whole game and we had to discard one? That is insane. Alright, well. 4, 5. We get the counter on it. That would be a max of 6 damage. Not enough. So I guess we just go with the messenger. Draw and discard a swamp. Do we make this a 5/5? I think we do. Alright, so they take 1 damage. We get to play a mocking sprite. That's gonna be our chump blocker, I guess. So as it stands, we could... Well, I know if they eat a food, then we're still trading with this wolf. So hopefully they have like 2 lands in hand. That would be ideal. Alright, we have to block everything or we die. So we'll line them up like that. This forces them to use a food and a mana to save their scavenger. Alright, 2/7. We find Chancellor of Tales. I mean, that keeps us alive. We get to do our looting here. We pick up another Into the Fey Court. Doesn't help us. Okay, and now we again have a chump blocker, which might keep us alive. We're in this like 1 turn at a time. If they have any sort of removal here, we're done. If they have Tough Cookie and they wake up one of their tokens, we're done. Alright, they're just making rats. Fine. Man, we are so close, because right now, if they don't attack with this wolf, then we attack for lethal in the air. But if they attack with the wolf, we have to block it. And then we don't have lethal. Alright, so they figured it out. So we've got to block this wolf. And they're going to eat another food, so the wolf's going to survive. So we are running out of time to find answers here. Fey Court could draw us more... Ooh. Alright, Talion's pretty good. I don't think that's going to quite do it. So we go in with the messenger first. Draw a card. Really wish that was an island, so we could have double spelled here. I guess we're giving up Fey Court. And I guess we didn't find enough, because now no matter what we play here, they're gonna be able to attack underneath us and win. We were so close. We got them to 2. Yeah, it's not going to do it, though, because they've got too much. Man, that's a frustrating loss that we flooded out, but not with the right colors. Like, if we had found an island, we could have played into the Fey Court and drawn 3 more cards. You know, or if our Obyra had stuck around for a little longer, we could have drained him out of just those last 2 points of life. Of course, our opponent... Our opponent didn't read Lord Talion. What? So Talion says, when they enter the battlefield, choose a number between 1 and 10. Whenever an opponent casts a spell with the mana value, power, or toughness equal to the chosen number, that player loses 2 life. What did they cast? A Sweet Tooth Witch with 2 toughness? Is that what they tried to get away with? I missed it. I looked away from the screen. Oh, the wolf. They tried to play the wolf with 2 toughness, and that did it. That triggered Talion. They could have just attacked and won. Never concede, friends. Never concede. The fairies got there with their fairy tricks. Okay, let's try another one. That was fun. All right, after that game, we have earned ourselves the expert hat, and we've got both of our colors, some early stuff to play. I think we're keeping this. See if the fairies can steal another one. Opponent opens with a Phyrexian vampire, a 1/1 with lifelink. Very nice. All right, so we've got a fairy fencing now, which is very helpful. But we need at least 1 fairy in play to be able to cast it. Not for free, but like we get a good discount if we have a fairy. All right, so I think Barrow Naughty comes next. That gets us a fairy. She won't have lifelink yet because we don't have another fairy. But if she survives, whenever I say if they survive, they never survive. We could have protected her with Spell Stutter next turn. Didn't get there. All right. We don't get to develop our board this turn, but we will have Spell Stutter and or Fairy Fencing if we need to remove somebody. So they've got Vran, the Executioner Thane. Whenever 1 or more other creatures you control dies, each opponent loses 2 life. Wow. So if we're getting rid of anything, I guess it's got to be that guy first. But let's see if they try to play something here that we can counter. Etched Familiar. Yeah, we don't want them getting more life or draining us for more life. So if we just counter that, we can prevent all of that. And they do get to hit us for 3 here. Or at least we stop them from developing their board anymore. And now we're going to have a 4-mana 3/3. Or do we just remove the Executioner with our Fairy Fencing? So it's all islands or all swamps with this deck, apparently. I guess I like just putting down the 3/3. Force them to have some removal for it. And of course they do, because they always do. Alright, so now our Fairy Fencing gets a little worse again. Okay, so we've got the Negotiator. Or do we just run out the court? I think Fairy into the Fey Court might be better here. I know we can't block with the Fairy Creature token, but we can bargain her next turn, and we will have hopefully an extra land that we can use for playing our Negotiator and having Fairy so we got rid of our token, so now we don't get to bargain it. All right, interesting. Fell Stinger is one we don't see included very often. I like how that worked with their token. And with Vran, this is a very punishing, draining deck. I have to give it to the opponent here. It's doing things. All right. So we can do Obyra, but we only have 1 swamp left. So I think we need to Fairy Fencing and get rid of Vran. And then we can keep the Attendants to instantly give something -4/-0, probably this Stinger. So that way we can block that, kill it, not worry about the death touch. Alright, that was a reasonable turn. So now the question is, do we just make our opponent discard something? I think we do. I think we just play Spellscorn Coven to drain them, although they are still a long way away from being dead, and we are very close to being dead. But we've come back from tricky spots with this deck already once before, so. Opponent discards a swamp. Alright. I'm not going to attack just in case they do have removal. I really don't want to get, run over here by a 1/1. Alright, Stormkirk Blood Thief. At the beginning of your end step, if an opponent lost life, put a counter on it. Cool. They wisely do not attack. And we pick up Storyteller Pixie. Whenever you cast an adventure, draw a card. I think I like getting that down because we've got an adventure in hand. Although I'm still not feeling brave enough to attack. I'm sure someone in the comments is going to say that I should be putting pressure on them. But when we're only at 4 life and they have like 3 power on the board, any sort of removal really changes the math here. So we can just wait them out. We have inevitability at this point. Kind of. All right, opponent trying to decide what they want to do with their turn. They've got 2 creatures on board, smaller than our board. Give them the old friendly hello. Our turn, thank you. Pick up a swamp. So I definitely want to keep the negotiator until we have a bargain piece, because that drain life is going to be really good for us. So I think now we'll just play the attendance that was on adventure. And I guess now I'm okay attacking with just 1 creature, but I want to keep up enough to block through removal. Hopeless Nightmare. So that's going to make us discard something. So I think we're going to use our adventure now, which draws us a card. All right. Unfortunately, that used up all of our blue. So do we want to get rid of our negotiator or get rid of our spell stutter? We're down to 2. Opponent redeems their Hopeless Nightmare. They get to scry. They keep both on top. That's not a good sign. All right, we pick up a second Obyra, which does not do us a lot of good. And we don't have any artifacts, enchantments, or tokens to bargain. Man. All right, so opponent's at 15. If we attack with everybody, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But then we're dead on the crackback. So I guess we try to get within field goal range here. And now, if they don't kill us this turn, we've got them on the next. Okay, so they're going to destroy our smaller people. And then we're going to have to sacrifice one of our bigger people. But they also destroyed their own people. Interesting. I guess we get rid of attendance. All right, so they keep themselves alive. Or do they? Because we've got... Well, okay, so they made the incubator token. We get to flash in our second copy of Obyra, which is going to let us attack for 8. And then all we have to do is play the High Fae Negotiator, and we actually win this. Or the Messenger. That'll work too. Because all of our stuff flies. They have no cards in hand, nothing in their graveyard, nothing on adventure. They can animate this, well, transform this token, but it won't won't be able to block because it's on the ground. Opponent loses a life. And then we attack for 8, and our opponent does the math. They concede. That's another win with the fairy deck, Zzz. Let's see if we can get a perfect hat trick out of this. Let's go for one more. All right, here we go. Game 3 with the faeries. We've got a bunch of lands, including our old friend Evolving Wilds, and then some fairies and a counterspell. I think we can make this work. We've started in worse positions. So Evolving Wilds will go grab our second swamp and then proceed to draw only swamps. Just seems to be how our luck is running. All right, opponent. Seek ye the grail. Love it. They have a broker's hideout to get a forest. Okay. So we're just going to hold a spell stutter here. I don't think they're going to have anything too scary on turn 2, but if we want to counter it, we could. No. All right. So now, do we play Mocking Sprite, or do we wait and keep mana up for spell stutter and or Obyra? They're going to try to create a 3/3 green Phyrexian beast with Toxic 1. I think we're gonna prevent that from happening. Okay. So now, do we just want our 3/3 out, or do we do Obyra first? I guess we wait and flash her in so we can get maximum drainage. Alright, they gain 4 life. Oof. So we'll flash in our flyer. And I guess we'll play our Storyteller Pixie, which big fan of storytelling, you know it. Got our opponent all the way down to 22. They got the mismatched forests going on here. Some Lord of the Rings, some full art John Avons, and a Hall of Tagsin, excuse me, which can make power stones. All right, so they use an infectious bite to eat our bigger fairy. This is just like a green stompy. Interesting. This is gonna hurt. All right, so I guess we do messenger here. Lets us loot. I don't love dream spoilers. That's a very expensive fairy for its stats. And I guess we're just gonna try to get in. So unfortunately, our Storyteller Sprite's gone, so our Desperate Parry Adventure won't draw us a card here. They're going to try and tail swipe. Perfect time to adventure here. Make that a 0 power. Oh, it gets 1 power from the tail swipe. Okay, it gets +1/+1. So we take 4. Barrow Naughty, decent pickup. But I think we still attack. I don't think we need Mocking Sprite, so we'll get rid of that. Maybe diversify where our counters are going a bit. Ooh, I thought I had 1 more mana. I thought I could double spell out of this. I guess not. All right, so we're gonna maybe pump this up to a 2/3. I don't know. Yeah, I don't really want to risk going all the way down to 4, so I guess I will block. I mean, that's fine. It was going to live anyway. They're just squeezing in a little bit of extra damage with the trample. See, again, this high Fae Negotiator, the ability to drain 3 is like good, but when you don't have any bargain fodder, you can't do it. Alright, so we'll just drain them. Is it worth even attacking here, or do I just want to keep my blockers up? I'm gonna say no attacks. I don't know how we weather this storm, because they've got a bunch of cards and they've been fighting and buffing, and Faeries has done okay with its back against the wall so far, but this one seems like maybe we're not gonna get there. Opponent thinking about it though. I mean, we're tapped out, so they know there's no tricks coming. But if they don't kill us this turn, then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Alright, so we pick off our messenger. Guess we're going to try to knock out the Contaminator. We'll take 7, go to 1, unless they've got a trick here. Not dead. And then they use Unnatural Restoration to bring back a card that they can't play. Ugh. Alright, well, as much as I wish we got to drain with this guy, I guess we just have to play him. So we have a blocker. And I mean, we can start plucking counters off of this, but we're not going to actually get to use them. So we need both of our blockers up. If they've got any sort of fight spell or removal here, we're pretty much dead, but as the board stands, we can block everything that they have and live. Whenever I say that, they play something that changes the math. Okay, so they're coming in with a 5/5 now. So I guess we double up to take that out. And they take out the 3/5. Interesting. Well, so far none of their stuff has trample. So I guess we're still okay here. We played a spell, so it doesn't switch to night. We're once again hanging by a gossamer wing. Well, chump block. And we pick up a swamp. Alright, so we attack. Oh, this is attendance. I thought this was still the messenger, so we don't get to loot this swamp away. That is bad. So that means this is going to flip because now it's nighttime. Mm-hmm. Alright, so it just has hexproof. It doesn't have trample. This has haste. That's enough to do it. Alright, we are dead. Faeries put up an excellent fight, but this time the beef of green was just a little too much for us, unfortunately. Alright, let's take one last look at the deck, which still had a respectable finish. We'll see if we can make some improvements. Go from there. Alright, so overall our Faeries finished 2-1. Pretty good for a budget deck that is mostly meant to show off the blue-black archetype for Wilds of Eldraine draft. I think there's a lot you can do with this shell. I would always start with looking at your lands and improving those. We've got options in Standard right now: Underground River, Shipwreck Marsh, Dark Slick Shores. You really want to get those Evolving Wilds out if you can. And there was a couple times where we were frustrated by drawing all of one color and not the other. Put some duals in there to kind of cover all of your bases. Once you've got that going for you, you can start to splash in some more interesting stuff. Rankle's Prank is like on theme. Rankle's not in the story, but he is a notable fairy, and forcing everyone to discard cards, lose life, sack creatures. I mean, our board can go wide enough. We've got ways to make tokens and stuff, so this could be a good way to kind of keep those big green threats kind of under control, for example, or discard cards out of a control player's hand after you drop a lot of your fairies and they're just holding on to 1 or 2 cards left. That's probably a board wipe or something. Really flexible. So I would try to find room for maybe one of these in there just for the lulls. And then other fairy options. I was really surprised this deck did not include Picklock Prankster. The adventure half of it, mill 4 cards, then put an instant sorcery or fairy from among the milled cards into your hand. So that's pretty good. I mean, the deck is really dense with fairies and instants and sorceries, so I feel like this would be a strong card to include. And then it's a 2-mana 1/3 with flying and vigilance. That makes it a really great target for the +1 counters coming off of Talion's Messenger, for example. It just becomes a bigger and bigger blocker and attacker. Another choice might be Twining Twins? Twining Twins? I don't know. Even though we don't have white in here, we can't use the the adventure half. It's a 4-mana 4/4 with flying, vigilance, and ward 1. That still hits really hard, and it works well with all of our other cards that care about having fairies. So I would maybe swap out something like Dream Spoilers, which is a 4-mana 2/2 with flying. And this does have a little ability on it when you cast a spell during an opponent's turn. Up to 1 target creature they control gets -1/-1, and that's not great. I mean, it's incidental kind of shrinkage, but I would probably replace that even with the slightly off-color Twining Twins. Otherwise, I think the deck is pretty solid. We handled things pretty well. I like Sleep Cursed Fairy. It enables the Fairy Fencing, Spell Stutter, Barrow Naughty, a bunch of cheap things that are looking for you to control a fairy. We got 1 Fairy Dream Thief in here for some reason, never showed up, but I like that one too, because it lets us surveil, kind of dig through our deck and find what we're looking for. And then if it's in the graveyard, we can cash it in for another card, and that's always good. The Obyras are great, flashing in at the end of an opponent's turn. I mean, that made the difference in game 2. And then every subsequent fairy just drains life. Drain implies that you get health out of it. You don't. It just takes life away. So that's still good. The Naughties are great mana sink if you're running long and you want to gain some life back. Spell Stutter, I would maybe even go up to a 3rd one of these, because there's a lot of times you're just going to want to shut your opponent down for a turn. Mocking Sprite, kind of expensive as a 3-mana 2/1 flyer, and we didn't really have a lot of other instants or sorceries. It's mostly about the fairy density and just playing more fairies and kind of pinging your opponent with Obyra, or looting through your deck with the Messenger or other stuff. Chancellor of Tales looks for adventures. We don't really have a whole ton of adventures. Same thing with Storyteller Pixie. Whenever you cast an adventure, draw a card. Whenever you cast an adventure, you may copy it. I mean, these kind of do the same thing, and that's why there's a 2/2 split. I would maybe pick whichever one you like more and go up to a 3rd and then ditch the other one. I mean, you got a 2/3 or a 3/3. I guess the stats are a little better on Storyteller, but it depends on how many other adventures you're keeping. I mean, really, your best one is probably Spellscorn Coven, which has a sort of soft counter spell with Take It Back. You get to return a spell to its owner's hand. So note that you've got to play that like a counter spell. It has to be while they're trying to cast a spell. This doesn't bounce something that's already on the board. It interrupts a spell as it's happening, so be mindful of that. The idea is that you play this on 3 to bounce their spell back to their hand, then you play the Spellscorn Coven itself on 4 and make them discard, presumably whatever you just put back in there. But Talion was super cool. That won us the game that we were gonna lose because our opponent did not read the card. Probably don't need a whole lot of these, but going up to a 2nd copy if you've got a mythic wild card or a couple of bucks to spend on your budget, go for it. And then you start getting into these really expensive cards, which I think you probably want to trim some of these down. Obyra's Attendant, mostly in here for the flavor match. I mean, it references another character who's in the story. Well, not in the story, in the deck. And it has an adventure, which kind of also works with stuff like Dream Spoilers or, Chancellor of Tales, whatever. So this one's okay, but 5 mana for a 3/4 flyer at its base, not great. Into the Fey Court gives you, a blue fairy creature token that you can bargain away. It also draws you 3 cards, but I think I like Rowdy Research as your draw engine a little bit better there. So I would probably go down to one of these, maybe cut it entirely. It depends if you're keeping the High Fey Negotiator. Never got to cast this with a bargain. The deck just doesn't really have any way to make treasures or foods or any other tokens or artifacts, really. We also don't really have any enchantments in here, so you pretty much have to bargain a token creature, and I think the only way you can really make those is with Into the Fey Court, if I'm scanning this correctly. So again, it's a cool piece, and it's a 3/5 that's probably your highest toughness out of anything by default, so it's a good blocker, but you really want to have some bargain fodder there to get the max value out of this admittedly sweet looking fairy warlock. And then Rowdy Research, like I just said, I like this one. It's got fairies in the art. It rewards you for going wide, attacking. You get 3 more cards. It's an instant, so you can keep up your counter spells or your removal. Works really well with what this deck wants to do. Overall, I am happy with this one. It's one of the better ones. Doesn't have a lot going on story-wise, although again, Into the Fey Court is a story spotlight card. You know, there's Kellen. He went there. He talked to Talion, and Talion had messengers and stuff like that. So there is a core here that does portray part of the Wilds of Eldraine story. So it does well enough there, but it really exceeds at being a blue-black draft deck pushed to its max. And again, with just a few simple upgrades, you could turn this into something probably competitive enough to win you some standards. I wouldn't be embarrassed to show up with a highly tuned version of this for FNM or a casual night around the kitchen table with my friends or family. But I want to know what you think. Leave me some comments down below. Then make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the great stories you'll only find here on Magic Arcanum. We'll see ya.